also included in this touchstone. The idea is always to not only create some points of self-introspection, reflection, discovery, but also to end with a short and powerful practice to amplify and accelerate the impact of the qualities of the flower that we're working with this month. It's July 2020. It is a crazy year and a crazy month, and wonderful and beautiful at the same time. Was reflecting on themes, but before I get into that, I should just say that isn't this a beautiful place? We're in the high desert in Prescott, Arizona, in northern Arizona. The Sacred Datura, although it's native to Arizona, you would think it would be really easy to find. It is elusive. It's not that easy to find. And Taylor and I have been on many adventures in the last month, once a week, in search of the flower, finding it in different locations around the state and in different conditions. Confession, if you follow us on social media and also in the email list, you may have noticed that we actually recorded 2 videos introducing the flower, because the first time that we found a beautiful patch of it, it was only the first week that we had taken the flower elixir, and we had so much sort of like the cleansing effects of the Datura. We were experiencing so much paranoia and fear that we felt like that was coming through the video. So we had to go back a week later and reshoot that video. You may not have been able to see it, but we could detect it. So it's always interesting to me how life can act as a reflection of our inner world. What we're experiencing on the inside is often reflected back from the outside world. And so some of the themes that we're working with this month through the Sacred Datura are danger versus safety. I mean, even just in terms of thinking about this in purely botanical terms, this is an extremely poisonous plant. One of the only ways to access its medicine is through flower essences. So there is kind of an allure, a mystique, powerful, sense of respect in terms of the deadliness of this particular plant. And it works on our cellular DNA level of patterning around danger. When are we safe and when are we in dangerous situations? And being able to purge old fears that are stuck in the cells from whatever experiences we've had, this life, previous lives, if you believe in that, so that we can be clear about when we truly, truly are safe versus dangerous in a dangerous situation, and be able to act accordingly. Some of the other themes that have come up this month are around freedom versus repression, being able to speak your truth and be yourself, your authentic self, versus feeling suppressed or censorship. Being able to trust your inner compass versus allowing the outside world to dictate what your beliefs or your experiences. Truth versus illusion. The ability to question things, question yourself, your experience, your patterns, the world around you. And what I'm finding is that the more able we are to question the world that we have on the inside, the more open we are to truth on the outside. If we can see our own inner demons or our poison, so to speak, we are more able to have self-compassion and flexibility in the outer world. So let me just cut to the chase and say, here, maybe a nice windy blessing for you. one thing that my teacher often says is that poison cures poison. And this is one of those instances where we have this extremely poisonous plant that has a capacity to detox and cleanse our bodies, our patterns, emotions, psyche, etc. You may notice that your body is detoxing on very different or subtle or expanded ways than it typically does. And I'll just give you some examples. We've had some people tell us that they have been breathing differently. A few people have said that during the first week of working with Sacred Datura that they were burping a lot. Several people reported this. I know myself and Taylor went through some pretty major yawning periods in the first week where we just were like constantly yawning, and it just became like a silly joke because we were yawning so much. Bleeding, spotting, menstruating during times when it's actually not your menstruation. So bleeding, spotting, and odd times of your cycle, from light to heavy and totally unexplainable. People have noticed different patterns in terms of like going to the bathroom, different pooping patterns, or your body essentially being able to detox. Some folks have been crying as a way to flush out your system. I can tell you a very embarrassing story. That's funny. Sometimes we do these things that are silly and you wonder, maybe it can enhance the detoxification. I didn't do this on purpose, but I had a drink that was in the fridge that was open and a little bit old. It wasn't super fresh, but it smelled amazing. It was chai, spices, and coconut milk. And I knew it was a little bit old, but I just smelled so good. It didn't smell like it was rotten, so I went for it. And the next morning I was running, as I have been every morning, running a couple miles. And if you've been to India or Nepal or Vietnam or Mexico, or places where when you eat on the street you pay for it later, sometimes that comes to us. It's like you don't need to go to India for the purification. You can bring it right into your life, into your everyday life. And the next morning I was running, and it was a beautiful day, and then suddenly I realized that the drink was coming to get me. Anyway, long story short, I was running in this really beautiful neighborhood that I run in every morning. I was about a mile from my house, and it became apparent that I just wasn't going to make it. I wasn't going to make it home. I was walking at this point. I couldn't run anymore. I thought, should I knock on somebody's door and ask them if I can use their restroom? No, that's weird. No, that's really strange. People are going to think I'm crazy. So I ended up going in the alley, and it was like this incredible detoxification. And the amazing thing was, like, 6 houses could see me. Is anyone commenting? They're like, oh my God. I know. And I was looking at like 6 different houses, and I was like, any one of these people could look out their window and see me in the grasses right now in the alley. But one of the amazing things about this experience was that I was totally shameless. Like, in that moment, I was like, I am human. We are all human. This happens to all of us. And what are you going to do? Right? Like, how are you going to get that mile back home? So it is like, humbling human experience of letting go and releasing what is no longer serving your body. And oftentimes in those cases, when we get food poisoning, we're not only releasing whatever the funky bacteria is, but it's allowing our bodies a chance to really take everything and get it out. The odd thing was, I just spoke to Kate, who has worked in LOTUSWEI for a long time, and she's currently doing some caretaking, but she had the exact same experience, except for she skipped running that morning. She was lucky. So you may want to just like observe what is your body up to these days, and see what sort of phenomenon you're experiencing, because this really is the month to cleanse and release toxins, both physically, emotionally, and sort of in the collective psyche as well. It's like the collective dark night of the soul. When we put these flower essences together, we always do them 6 months at a time, and this is month 6 of this set. So for a long time now, I've been wondering what is going to happen in July, because Sacred Datura is such an intense flower. And now we're experiencing July. It is a month to purge old fears and triggers so that you can really trust in your own inner perception, so that you can trust in your own humanity, so that you can find yourself in your humility and be like fully okay in your humanness and your truth. I also want to say that there are a lot of phenomenon happening in the external world right now. We're seeing some of the underbelly of society. There are certain things that are coming out into social media that likely have been in existence for decades, and now they're just sort of coming out in full force. And just a quick note to say that cognitive dissonance is a real thing, and it is totally normal. I remember when I used to work for a crisis, when I very first came back to the United States after living abroad, I worked as a crisis counselor. And most evenings I would work 10-hour shifts, and I would see things that people can't even dream of seeing or that they exist, right? It's like being a police officer. You see this whole underbelly of society that most people luckily don't actually see or know exists. And so I would come home from these 10-hour shifts, and even though I live in a house with lots of roommates, it's like something would happen to my energetic system where it was just like, I would come home and be like, hi, and beeline to my room, strip off my clothes, take a shower, and then just spend several hours alone. And other people in similar occupations may have had experiences like this, where it's almost like something overwhelms your system so much that you're incapable of talking about it, really. It's just like it needs to kind of process its way through. And the good news is you find your way out of that situation and the joy comes back. So those situations are only temporary, this kind of overload. And in some ways, to me, it appears as if the collective is going through a sort of purging, purification, darkness, seeing the light, ugly things coming to the surface, and poison coming to the surface to clean itself out. And although things may seem topsy-turvy and upside down, and we may have that feeling, right, of just clogged or overwhelmed, but it's only temporary. And so Sacred Datura is here to help us release as much as we can, because we are a micro version of the macro world. Another crazy story. So one of my roommates adopted puppies. I didn't know anything about parvo. If anybody knows about puppies and parvovirus, this is like another example of how, you know, suddenly there's a virus in the house and we have to clean the carpets and clean the stuff and take the puppies and then make sure they don't get our other dogs sick. And we've got like a puppy quarantine situation going on in my house. And so it's like, it just reminds me of like how we can experience these kind of macro themes in a micro level in our own personal lives. All that talking. Just to share some stories and humility. And at this point, if you have paper and a pen, we'd love to have you write down some answers to questions. If you don't have paper and a pen, you can always write in your notes section of your phone, or just think about what arises. And I'll just ask you some questions, about 6 questions, bullet journaling. Write the first thing that comes to your mind. And the first question is, have you noticed, or what bodily changes or phenomenon have you noticed in the last few weeks? I.e., breathing patterns, burping, yawning, bleeding, spotting, bathroom patterns, crying, reproductive issues, infections, old illnesses or injuries kind of coming back up, maybe something you haven't experienced in 5, 10, 15 years. Dreams, nightmares, intense dreams. Have you noticed any physical, just kind of out of the ordinary phenomenon? Next question, what poisons are you detoxing from your body? That can be emotional patterns, thoughts, beliefs. Is there anything that has arisen that wants to be cleaned out or released? What have you noticed in the last few weeks? If you have your Datura, you can feel free to take some. And the next question is, how are you seeing the collective dark night of the soul playing out in your life? And that can be any range of things in the collective, in our world that we live in, anything that is real for you. Are you seeing a reflection of it in a very micro level in your own life? And the last question is, what's happened out of the ordinary this month? Have there been certain people reach out to you, call you, text you that you haven't talked to in a while, or just in general, something out of the ordinary or unusual that has happened in the past few weeks? Good, bad, ugly, wonderful. I always say it's going to be the last question, and it never is. This is the one last. If you have the bottle close to you, you can hang on to, grab onto it. If not, you can just think about it. And this last question is, if this particular plant had a lesson or a particular message for you, what would that be? And just be open to seeing what comes through. So I know this is such a strange thing to say, but what came to me is that You know that feeling after you vomit when you just feel like, oh, relief. You feel so much better. I think the good news about this particular flower as a reflection to us is that as we purify ourselves, our bodies, our collective, there is a sense of relief. There is a sense of light at the end of the tunnel. And we feel better afterwards. It's just getting the gunk out. So we can end with a short meditation, and then we can show you the flower. We've got some flowers next to us that are still curled up tightly. They will open once the sun goes down. So we'll just end with a short meditation, but before we start, just to remind you that next Friday, we'll have our group share session. I cannot wait. I'd love for as many of us as possible to hop on Zoom for just a quick call. It'll be shorter than usual because we finally figured out the one-on-one breakout sessions in Zoom where you can break everybody up and you'll get opportunities to talk to a couple other people about what you've been experiencing during the last 3 months of flower elixirs. And I'll talk a little bit more next Friday also about the next 6 months of Flowerevolution. Through the rest of the summer and fall and beginning of the winter, we'll be working with flowers from the wild in Taiwan and in Costa Rica. And some really strong orchids that we used to reserve for retreats only, and now it feels like the right time to bring them out. So I'll talk more about that next Friday, and would love to have you all on the group share live so we can talk about our experiences. It's so helpful to talk to other people because someone will say something that brings an experience to mind that you hadn't thought of or been aware of before. So wherever you may be, sitting comfortably, if you need to wiggle or stretch, if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. If you want to keep your eyes open, you can keep your eyes open. Noticing if you feel any tension in your body, if you can locate any areas of tension. Invite in softness, gentleness. See if you can invite your body to relax just a little bit more. Dissolving resistance, allowing your body to relax and feel safe. Allowing your eyelids to relax, the tops of your shoulders, the back of your neck, anything you're holding on to in your upper back, any constriction in your chest. Any tightness in your belly can soften. Allowing your hips to relax and open. Your thighs all the way down to your knees. Your knees can invite softness. your shins, calves, ankles, the tops of your feet, the soles of your feet, your toes, your fingers. Acknowledging the beauty and humanity of your body, allowing it to relax just a little bit more. Imagining this energetic cord that shoots from the bottom of you all the way down deep into the center of the earth. You are a child of this paradise, and you are grounded and tethered and protected. You are surrounded by the earth and the trees and the plants and the flowers and the animals. That are pure. The world that we live in is purity. And inspires anything that is toxic or impure to melt and dissolve, so that we may embody and find our own purity and truth. We are born into this world pure, and we are pure. Our hearts are pure. Then we will dedicate all of us who are in the Flowerevolution program, who are working with the Sacred Datura. We will dedicate our own physical purification, detoxification, our own emotional purification, that we dedicate that to the collective. But in our simple human form, in our simple humanity, there is purity and truth that is indestructible. that there is nothing to do or fix or solve. That simply by dedicating our own purification, we may accelerate and promote and catalyze that in the macro collective. That we align with the forces of nature. That we trust in the safety of being on this earth. I'm just going to make a wish and an intention that if you have more elixir in your bottle, that it may be potentiated, that it may be magnified, that it may be strengthened by our collective intention and wish, and that for the last bits of elixir, the last moments of July, that we may have an experience of our own purity and truth. Letting all the overwhelm pass through and finding light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you for being a part of this program. You may feel like you're alone in your own world, taking flower essences, but I believe in the power of everyone taking this flower together, and that our experience makes a difference. You want to show the flowers? You have to watch the video to see them in full blown, but you gotta see here. Yeah. I think it's gonna focus. There we go. So pretty. The tips are purple. It's having a hard time focusing, but like spirals. Cool. Oh, and the fruit. That's why they call it pineapple. Oh, it's looking very sharp. So have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for being part of this. It is deeply meaningful. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much, and hope to see you next Friday. And if we can get any videos of these flowers popping this evening, we'll share them.